Okay, let's get into it. We're going to unpack one of the most successful and long-lasting international agreements ever made, the North Atlantic Treaty.
Right. Signed back in April 1949, so just after the total chaos of World War II.
And its whole mission, its entire purpose, really just comes down to one core idea:
Yeah.
collective security.
That concept was, it was pretty revolutionary for its time. The entire goal was to build an alliance strong enough to stop another huge war in Europe, to, maintain the peace. They were sick of fighting every couple of decades.
And when it started, it was just 12 members.
Just 12.
You had the big North American players, the United States and Canada.
Yeah.
And then they joined up with key nations in Western Europe.
Like Great Britain and France, yeah. So it was a true transatlantic thing from the very beginning.
And that foundation seems so important. It wasn't just a military deal.
No, not at all. It was explicitly built on these shared values, things like democracy, individual freedom, the rule of law. That shared belief system is probably what gave it the staying power to last for, over 75 years now?
Right. If the values didn't line up, the whole thing would have just fallen apart.
It would have cracked really fast.
So if we're talking about collective security, we have to go straight to the main event.
Yeah.
The one rule that everyone knows.
Oh, absolutely. The single most important part of the entire agreement. It's the core promise, really.
The principle of collective defense.
Yep. Which means we have to talk about Article 5.
The famous Article 5.
Article 5 is where all the power is. It states very, very clearly that an armed attack against one member
It's considered an attack against all of them.
all of them, instantly. So a fight between two countries suddenly becomes a fight between one country and 32.
And that is the ultimate deterrent,
It
right?
has to be.
If a country is even thinking about military action, they don't just have to worry about one nation's army. They have to calculate the combined strength of basically all of North America and Europe.
And that calculation stops a lot of aggression before it can even get started. That's the whole point.
But, for all that power, Article 5 has only been used one time in its entire history.
Just once. And that was right after the September 11th attacks on the United States.
Right, 2001.
Correct. And invoking it then wasn't just a symbolic thing. It actually triggered a real coordinated response military intelligence.
So things like sharing airspace information, deploying forces.
Deployed forces to Afghanistan, exactly. It proved the commitment was real even when the attack happened thousands of miles away from Europe.
Okay, but let's say an attack happens. Article 5 is triggered. How flexible is the response? It says members agree to assist the victim, but that doesn't mean everyone has to send soldiers, does it?
That's a really good question, and it's a critical detail that a lot of people miss. Yes, assistance can include using armed force, but Article 5 is flexible on purpose. Each nation still has the right to decide what specific actions it's going to take, based on its own laws and its own capabilities.
Hang on, but doesn't that sort of weaken the promise? What if a country gets attacked and needs fighter jets, but a big member decides to just send, I don't know, food and bandages? Is it really collective defense if everyone just does whatever they feel like?
That's a fair challenge. It really highlights the political reality of an alliance this big. The promise to act is absolute, but the way you act is up to the nation. Think about it. One country might have an amazing cyber warfare unit, but a tiny air force. So they might contribute that, technical support.
Okay.
Another might be far away and could help with naval patrols instead. The political pressure to contribute something meaningful is huge.
So you can't just phone it in.
You can't. If you do, you damage the trust of the entire group. So the assistance has to be real, even if it's specialized.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about how this club has grown, because it definitely didn't stay at just 12 members.
Oh, no. It has expanded like crazy. From those original 12 founders to today, 32 different nations.
So what are the rules for joining? Can any country just sign up?
There are a few key requirements. First, you generally have to be a country in Europe. And second, you have to be able to actually contribute to security. That means having a functioning military and a stable government.
And then there's the biggest political hurdle. Everyone already in the club has to agree.
Exactly. The process requires unanimous agreement from all current members.
All 32 of them.
Every single one has to vote yes, no exceptions, which makes joining a very, very serious commitment.
And you can almost see world history in the different waves of expansion.
You really can. During the Cold War, you had countries like Greece, Turkey, and West Germany joining to sort of solidify that line between East and West.
And then after 1990, a huge shift.
That was historic. After the Soviet Union was gone, so many countries in Eastern Europe saw membership as the ultimate security guarantee.
They wanted the protection of Article 5.
They rushed to join for that stability and protection. It was a way to lock in a new, peaceful, democratic future for the continent.
Okay, so you have this massive organization. Where does it all run from? What's the headquarters?
The main political and administrative center is in Brussels, in Belgium. It's basically a giant diplomatic hub. You have ambassadors, military planners, all 32 countries, all there every day, coordinating and making decisions.
And you mentioned decisions require consensus. How does a group of 32 countries, all of their own interests, agree on anything?
Well, it's incredibly difficult. I imagine it leads to some very late nights in Brussels, but because it's consensus, every single country, from the biggest to the smallest, has veto power.
So that protects smaller nations. The big countries can't just push them around.
Exactly. It ensures their interests are respected. And that's why negotiations can take a long time. But when a decision is made, it carries enormous weight because, all 32 sovereign nations are truly on board.
And who's the person in charge of managing all that? The one trying to get everyone to agree?
That would be the Secretary General. This person is the top civil servant for the alliance.
And there's an interesting rule about who can have that job.
There is. The Secretary General is always chosen from a European member country, never from North America.
Why is that? If the U.S. is providing so much of the military power, why don't they get the top political job?
It's all about political balance. The U.S. provides overwhelming military might, no question, so having a European Secretary General provides political legitimacy. It ensures the leadership comes from the region that's, most directly affected by security on the continent.
To check and balance.
A very important one. The Secretary General's job isn't military command, it's political leadership.
So they chair meetings, act as the main spokesperson.
Exactly. They guide the nations to find that consensus and then act as the single, clear voice for the alliance on the world stage.
Okay, now let's get practical.
Yeah.
The military side. When they all get together for a mission, do they just merge their armies into one big force?
No, absolutely not. That's another really common misconception. Member countries do not give up their own national armies. Their soldiers and equipment stay under their own national control until they're specifically assigned to a joint mission.
So the goal isn't one giant army. It's making sure 32 separate armies can work together instantly.
That's the real magic trick, and it takes constant training and a huge focus on something called standardization.
Standardization?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. If you have soldiers from France, Germany, and the U.S. on the same mission, their radios have to be able to talk to each other.
Their equipment has to be compatible.
Right. From the size of a rifle bullet to the fuel nozzle on a fighter jet, they train together all the time to make sure this stuff is just second nature.
That's what allows them to respond so fast.
Much faster than if they were just 32 separate countries trying to figure it out in a crisis. The systems are already built to work together.
So running all of this, the headquarters, the training, the shared systems, must cost a fortune. How do they pay for it?
It does. And the funding is designed to be fair. Each country pays into a common budget. And your share is based on the size of your economy, your gross domestic product, or GDP.
The bigger your economy, the bigger your share of the bill.
Simple as that.
And that brings us to that very controversial number we always hear about, the 2% goal.
Right. The 2% goal is probably the most politically debated financial part of the alliance. Members have agreed to aim to spend at least 2% of their own GDP on their own national defense.
So that's not money they pay to the alliance. It's money they spend on their own military.
Exactly. It's less about paying the bills in Brussels and more about making sure every nation is pulling its own weight.
It's a measure of burden sharing.
It is. It's a way of showing your allies you're serious about defense and not just, relying on someone else to protect you.
So with all this structure and money, what does this alliance actually do today? The world is so different from 1949.
It is, and the mission has really expanded. On top of defense, they're heavily involved in crisis management and peacekeeping all over the world.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Think about the Balkans. After the wars there, peacekeepers from the alliance were deployed to maintain order and create stability so people could rebuild their lives. They also act as a huge disaster relief organization. That same military logistics network can be used to deliver food, water, and medicine after an earthquake or a flood.
And it's not just the 32 members, right? They work with a lot of other countries too.
A huge part of their modern job is partnerships. They work with countries all around their borders in the Mediterranean, North Africa, the Middle East. They cooperate on global problems, things like terrorism and piracy, to just promote stability everywhere.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me. The modern threats. We're not just worried about tanks crossing borders anymore.
No, the whole security landscape has completely changed. Today, the threats are often digital.
Cyber attacks.
Cyber attacks are a massive concern. I mean, an attack could shut down a country's power grid or its financial markets without a single shot being fired.
And the alliance takes that just as seriously as a physical invasion.
They do. They've officially stated that a major cyber attack could be serious enough to trigger Article 5.
Wow.
Which is a huge adaptation. It recognizes that a digital attack can be just as destructive as a traditional one.
And then there's this mix of tactics they call hybrid warfare.
That's an even more complicated threat. It's a blend of conventional military pressure with things like disinformation campaigns online. The goal is to create chaos and confusion inside a country without ever crossing that clear red line that would trigger a military response.
Which makes getting 32 countries to agree on a response even harder.
Much harder. Other new priorities are things like the security impact of climate change.
And even protecting things like the underwater cables that carry all our internet data.
Exactly. But at the heart of all of it, the thing holding it together is still that transatlantic link.
That bond between Europe and North America.
It's the defining feature of the whole thing. It's built on shared history, shared values, and it's lasted for over 75 years. That makes it, probably the most successful alliance in history simply because it keeps adapting.
So what's next? Is it still evolving?
Oh, constantly.
Oh.
The big focus now is on new technologies. Things like artificial intelligence in warfare or using space-based systems for defense. The North Atlantic Treaty is really a living, breathing document. It's a guide for 32 nations trying to prevent war and ultimately protect the freedom of their citizens.
The lesson seems to be that a shared agreement on values is maybe the strongest defense there is.
Good luck with your studies.